stopped the last segment where I had just come to the realization that to maintain kind of integrity with myself, I was going to have to become Catholic.
Yes.
And that precipitated a very kind of wrenching transition in our lives from being an Episcopalian priest to eventually, by God's grace, being ordained as a Catholic priest. And that kind of transition is something that every Episcopalian priest, particularly who is married and who has children and who becomes Catholic, goes through. Now, I want to put this in a wider context because there are in the United States about 70 priests, like myself, who are married, who have children, most of us, who used to be Episcopalian priests. And almost all of us have gone through this kind of a journey. So I want to just establish a little bit of the larger context. We enter the Catholic Church through a set of special canonical provisions, which collectively are known as the Anglican pastoral provisions. And this was a set of canons, or a set of regulations, that was established by Pope John Paul II in 1980. So very soon after he became Pope, he received a request from a group of Anglicans who collectively wanted to become Catholic, who wanted to enter into a full union and full submission with the Catholic Church. Now, their motivation in doing so, by and large, was the fact that in 1976, the Episcopal Church began to ordain women. And the members of this group realized that if a church could ordain women, which had never been done before in the history of the church, and which violated or at least stepped outside of the Catholic tradition, if the church decided that it could do that, then there was no hope for the Episcopal Church to ever be more fully united with the Catholic Church. Now, in the Episcopal Church, it's very unusual because there's a wide range of beliefs and spiritualities that people have. And as Episcopalians, we generally talk of this as being the range between the evangelical arm of the church and the Anglo-Catholic arm of the church. And if you're an Episcopalian evangelical, your form of worship and your beliefs are not very different from a Methodist or from kind of a general, more conservative type of Protestant. And if you are an Anglo-Catholic Episcopalian, your beliefs and your form of worship are generally not very different from that of the Roman Catholic Church. So there are, in the Episcopal Church, a sizable number of persons, and particularly of priests, who think of themselves as Catholic.
I've noticed
who
that.
have beliefs that are very, very similar in many regards to that of Roman Catholics. There are even, in the Episcopal Church, Anglo-Papalists. These are Episcopalian priests who believe in the infallibility and the supreme authority of the Pope as the Bishop of Rome. And who have pretty much 100% agreement with Catholic doctrine. But they take this position: God has placed me in the Episcopal Church, and I want to work to try to rejoin my church with the mother church, with the Catholic Church, if I can.
Yes.
And so it was a group of persons with these kinds of views, hoping that they could bring the Episcopal Church back into closer union with the Catholic Church. And for some years, there were some signs that maybe they were having success 1976, when they ordained women in the Episcopal Church, it was like a big boot just put itself on them, a hammer came down. And so this group realized that that wasn't going to happen. And so they said, well, we've got to become, since we can't do any more good in the Episcopal Church, we're going to become Catholic ourselves. And so they applied to the Holy Father, and John Paul II responded positively. And he consigned the oversight of how it would happen, how it would be administered to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. And his new appointee to the CDF was the German Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger.
Interesting.
And so Joseph Ratzinger became the first kind of proponent and overseer of the pastoral provision in the United States. And what happened was that a single Episcopalian priest, and by single I mean just one, he could be married, but one Episcopalian priest who may or may not have been married, later on it was changed so that they only handled the married Episcopalian priests, would make an application. It's quite a lengthy application. It's several hundred pages in length. And it's really a diplomatic dossier that is prepared and presented to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. And there it's reviewed. And the CDF either approves or does not approve this man's application to become a Roman Catholic priest. Now, prior to this man, like I did